Last week on Fight and Revive, we discussed the Virginia gubernatorial election. This week, we are taking a look at the other two statewide races on the ballot this year. That would be the races for lieutenant governor and attorney general. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. So today I want to focus more on one of the races than the other. That would be the Attorney General's race. I want to focus more on that than I do the Lieutenant Governor for a couple reasons. First of all, the Attorney General's gotten a lot more press, and so it's more in the news right now. People are probably wanting to find out more about it. It's also just frankly more of an important office than Lieutenant Governor for the most part. The Virginia Senate is currently closely split 21-19, but the Democrats literally never break ranks here in Virginia. They always vote with each other in lockstep. So there will be almost no tie votes, which is pretty much the only thing the lieutenant governor does is cast tie votes in the Senate. So that's pretty much all there is to it. As far as lieutenant governor goes, it's practically all you're doing is casting tie-breaking votes in the Senate. That's about it, other than it's a name, it's an office, and it's a step to run up for governor, pretty much. So that's what it is. And so I'll go ahead and talk about that race briefly, and then we'll get to the Attorney General race. The two candidates this year are John Reid, the Republican nominee, who is a Republican or a conservative talk show host here in Virginia in the Richmond area, I think on WRVA, if I recall correctly, and Ghazala Hashmi, who is a Democrat state senator here in Virginia. Their various priorities are as follows. Hashmi is quite the outspoken leftist, even arguably more so than Jones and Spanberger, the Attorney General and Governor nominees, respectively. Her website states her top priorities as reproductive freedom, gun violence protection, fighting bigotry, whatever on earth that means, jobs and economy, education, environment, housing, families, healthcare, and protecting our democracy. In other words, yeah, she's a pretty big leftist. I know off the top of my head, one thing I didn't mention there because I've covered it before. I think it was last week. She is an advocate, even more outspoken than Spanberger is, about repealing right to work, and that would be a disaster for any state that it comes to, but especially here in Virginia. It would unionize the state practically. It'd be horrible for economic freedom, and yeah, ironic. I guess that's probably what's under her jobs and economy section of her website. I'm sure right to work is under there, but I'm not going to take the time to dive into that today. I discussed it some last week. You can go back and check out that episode if you want to. John Reid, on the other hand, the Republican nominee, he lists his top priorities on his website, some of which are expanding economic opportunities, standing up for law enforcement, education and parental rights, protecting rather than erasing our history, stopping radical social agendas such as DEI and CRT, and more. He mentions other classic conservative talking points as well. So, yeah, he has a track record as a reasonably conservative talk show host here in Virginia. Neither candidate, honestly, has gotten much attention from the press, Reid or Hashmi. From what I'm hearing, it seems like Reid has done much more campaigning than her as far as ground game. But when you're in a state of 8 million people, a effective ground game for your campaign is only going to take you so far. You can have an effective ground game, but like if it's a lot of volunteers statewide and not people affiliated with your campaign, people are just motivated, they're spreading the word, that can work. But if it's just you, the candidate, are knocking doors, great. I'm happy you're doing that. It's better than you doing nothing. But it probably doesn't matter that much in a state of 8 million people. You get, I don't know, if you get 1,000 doors a day between you and your campaign, which is like awfully ambitious, you'd be paying a lot of people to do that. Let's call it 500 doors a day. And you're getting, that's 10 people, 50 doors a day. So let's just call it 500. And then that would be 500 doors a day. Let's say, 100 days in the height of campaign season. That's 5,000 doors. Let's be really generous, up that to 10 or 15,000 doors. It really doesn't matter much. I think I did that math right in my head. I was kind of trying to move on to the next topic while I was doing that. I wasn't planning on talking about that. So if I did the math wrong, forgive me. But either way, the point being, it's not that, it doesn't matter all that much if you have an effective ground game as a campaign. A lot of that's just kind of a talking point to show people following on social media, I'm one of you, I'm a normal person, I want to talk to you. All the races seem to have some sort of quirk or interesting note about them this year. In this particular race, it's that Reid, the Republican nominee, is gay. He lives in Richmond with his self-described partner, quote unquote, Alonzo. And I've made my thoughts on homosexuality as a Christian conservative quite clear. I don't need to re-delve into all that. As far as the effect on the race, um, it is possible that this could drive down the conservative vote. I don't think it is likely to the voters that would vote for maybe would vote for Reid otherwise. The hardcore conservatives, the what would be described as the far right, or the Christian nationalists or the Christian purists or whatever. I don't think it's likely that many of those would flip to vote for the Democrat, and I certainly wouldn't urge anyone to do so. I think it's more likely that those people just don't end up voting. And is that enough to really impact his turnout? I don't necessarily think so. If he gets, let's say, 1.5 million votes, which I think is about right in the range of where he'd be getting probably, if I recall correctly, let's just say it's 1.5 million. Does he lose 100,000 votes because he's gay? From the farthest, I say, in quotes, far right corners of the right. Maybe. I don't think it's 100,000. I think you're looking maybe 30 to 50,000. Could it matter? Yes, because it's a really tight race. Like I said, I don't think those are going to be flips to Hashmi, those votes, but it's still votes he's not getting. So, could it affect the race? It will affect it some. Could it affect enough to flip that seat from red to blue? I think it's very unlikely. And as far as Reid's effect on the governor and attorney general race, both of them are getting way more press, way more attention, and frankly are more important than the lieutenant governor's race. So I don't think it's likely to affect those at all. Speaking of the attorney general's race, obviously the scandal has rocked that race. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about with Jay Jones, the Democrat nominee. But this race has been completely flipped on its head. The nominees are the incumbent Attorney General Jason Miyares, who has done a pretty fair job in his first 4 years as Attorney General here in Virginia, who is the top law enforcement officer in the Commonwealth. Jay Jones is the Democrat nominee. He's a former state delegate here in Virginia. Miyares was uncontested in the primary. Meanwhile, Jones narrowly won a very hard-fought primary battle against Shannon Taylor, who's a Commonwealth attorney, which is basically the district attorney equivalent, which is what we call district attorneys here in Virginia. And she wasn't a Commonwealth attorney. She was a Commonwealth attorney from Henrico County, I think. And he won that 51.11% to 48.89%. So it was a very close race. And right off bat, while it's not likely that there would be any significant minority people, there are always, almost always at least, in strongly contested primaries, factions, however big or small, from the losing side that feel hurt or bitter or betrayed, etc., by their own party, and will refuse to vote for the candidate that won. So in this case, someone who was a big Shannon Taylor fan may not vote for Jones. Democrats, honestly, are pretty good at avoiding this, seemingly, and I'm sure there will be a few. I think it'll make a very, very small impact on the race in terms of, I really wanted Shannon Taylor, I really don't like Jay Jones, and so I'm a Democrat, but I'm still not going to vote. I may not vote for Miyares, but instead of that, I'm not going to vote for him, but I'm not going to vote for Jones. I'm guessing the amount of people that won't vote for Jones because of the bitter primary, somewhat bitter primary, is probably about the same amount of people that won't vote for Reid because he is gay. And make of that what you will. I don't know that's going to happen. That's just what I see as I think is going to happen. I could be wrong. So I don't think that's going to make any major impact on the race. I don't think either of those things are. Here's the interesting thing about this race and why there's some optimism and some momentum with the Virginia GOP, which is a rare thing, honestly. Polling through October 1st showed Jones with consistent leads, with August and September polls ranging from Jones +7 to a tie race, with the average seemingly being about Jones +5 from what I was seeing and when I went back and looked at the polls. And then it broke. Text messages from Jones to Carrie Corner, who is another Republican delegate here in Virginia and frankly is a very, very moderate Republican. She cannot be counted on to be anything approaching a conservative or even be a reliable Republican vote, really. But text messages from Jones to Coiner were leaked and then confirmed to be legit. As I understand it, someone from the press, as Carrie Coiner was saying, Someone from the press asked her about it, and she confirmed their legitimacy. She did not leak them. I don't know if that's true. That's what I hear. In these text messages, Jones said things such as, and I quote, 3 people, 2 bullets. Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. Hitler gets 2 bullets to the head. And then, spoiler, put Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people you know, and he receives both bullets every time. Well, who he was referring to here was the former Republican Speaker of the House here in Virginia, Todd Gilbert. I think he was also the House Minority Leader here in Virginia for a while, and I believe he's currently serving a post under the Trump administration, if I'm not mistaken. And after all that, it gets even worse, if you can believe it. After this, apparently, there was a phone call between the 2 parties in which, as multiple reports, which I had Grok summarize, report, quote, during the call, Jones elaborated verbally on needing policymakers to feel pain, like gun violence victims' families, invoking the idea of Gilbert's wife, Jennifer, witnessing their children's deaths to prompt policy change, though this was not texted. Jones then continued texting, quote, if those guys die before me, I will go to their funerals to piss on their graves to send them out awash in something. And then, on top of all that, I mean, do I think Todd and Jennifer are evil and that they're breeding little fascists? Yes. And finally, after all that, as if it could not get worse, finally, the Virginia Mercury reports, in the text, Jones described a scenario in which Gilbert, quote, gets 2 bullets to the head, followed by a wish that Republican lawmakers' children, quote, die in their mother's arms. And what we're reading, what the reporting is that he said something along the lines of, only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. Kind of ties into some more leaked text messages, which I don't know if these were confirmed. These were rumored, but seem very likely to be true based on what we know, that he was saying back in 2020 with all the BLM violence that maybe a few police officers need to die for the violence stand or something along those lines. So needless to say, and rightly so, this has sparked a lot of outrage. The race narrative has changed, or the narrative of the race has changed from Miyares attacking Jones for being soft on crime and Jones attacking Miyares for being beholden to Trump, to being pretty much strictly about these text messages. And Jones is still running ads on the latter topic, but pretty much the whole only thing anyone's talking about now are the text messages. There was only one gubernatorial debate, which came at a good time for the GOP, as it only poured gasoline on the fire, as Democrat governor nominee Abigail Spanberger refused to condemn Jones and rescind her endorsement of him. You've probably seen the videos at this point where Winsome Sears, and the moderators as well actually did a very good job, but between the moderators and Sears, they pressed her over and over, will she rescind her endorsement of Jones? And I believe she was asked by the moderators, and I think they followed up 3 times. It was at least twice. It might have been 3 times. They followed up with her, trying to get her just to say yes or no, do you still endorse Jones? And they even said, after she refused to answer, so you do still endorse him? And she again gave some mealy-mouthed answer. She would not just say yes or no. She can't say no, or because she can't say no that she does not rescind it, because everyone will be like, okay, so she does condone it. And she also can't say yes, she does rescind it, because then it would turn off and anger a huge portion of her insane base. So she denounced the specific things he said, but she refused to speak any further on whether or not she still supported him or his policies or his actions. Which, of course, means she does. We all know that. And Winsome pointed that out, I think, during the debate. The campaign's got some great ads up. They need to be pushing those out till Election Day for them to start to get this out to people and start tying get a word about Jones out to people and then tie Spanberger to Jones. Spanberger would like to see her political opponents dead as much as Jones. I think that much is obvious. She's an immoral, godless, just reprobate, frankly. And she is, I mean, she's a literal communist, and she needs to be kept as far away from the governor's mansion as possible. If she's of a sane mind, that honestly makes it more dangerous than if she is a lunatic. But I mean, I cannot describe the comparison I've had, both in terms of like her character and her looks, is like the Wicked Witch or the White Witch, I guess is who it was, in the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. That was the comparison I could think of. She was so, in her refusal to rescind her endorsement of Jones, she was basically saying she wants to see her political opponents as dead as much as him. She's just not dumb enough to say so. So the polling, this has been extremely interesting. September 29th through October 1st, so a mere, 10 days ago. September 29th through October 1st, the Trafalgar Group, who has been pretty accurate in the past. Basically, 2020, their polling was decent. 2021 in Virginia, their polling was spot on. 2022, their polling was not fantastic. They predicted sort of the red wave that did not pan out, but a lot of polling did. 2024, they're polling fantastic again. So they have a pretty good track record overall, especially in Virginia. And I'll get more to that in a minute. But they surveyed 1,034 likely voters, which is a good size margin, and it's also good to see likelies. Likely voter polls are almost always more accurate than registered voter polls. Margin of error of only 2.9%, and it showed Jones up 49 to 45%. So, October 3rd, the text messages were leaked, and this latest poll from Trafalgar, just 10 days later released, taken October 8th through 10th. 1,034 likely voters, margin of error 2.9%. Miyares now leads 49 to 43%. So it went from Jones 49 to Miyares 49, and from Miyares 45 to Jones 43. So it was a gain of 10 points, basically a 10-point flip for Miyares, and a 2-point drop. No, 6-point. Sorry, I got that backwards. It was basically a 10-point flip because Miyares is now at 49, and Jones was at 49 before. And Miyares was at 45, so he gets plus 4. He's now at 49%. Jones loses 6. He's at 43%. So the newest Trafalgar poll, I know it was kind of confusing. Newest Trafalgar poll shows Miyares up 49 to 43%. And that was just released yesterday. Or I believe it was done yesterday. I think it was released today. The methodology I looked at seems solid. The insights, the numbers look good. It seems like it was on the up and up. I'm not an expert on polls, certainly. I'm just an anecdotal observer. But from what I can tell, like I said, about the likelies and everything, that looks good. Like I said, Trafalgar has a pretty decent track record. In 2021, their final poll showed Youngkin defeating Terry McAuliffe, 49 to 47%. And Youngkin did beat McAuliffe. He won 50.6 to 48.6. So it was exactly a 2-point margin. They did a really good job. And I think their last poll before that, if I recall correctly, earlier in that month, maybe even late September it was in that race, they showed it tied right when the momentum was changing. So they were very accurate in 2021 here in Virginia. It's also worth noting that Signal has Miyares up 2 in their latest poll, and Hart Research, and those are the 3 polls that have come out after these text messages. Hart Research, which is a Jones campaign internal poll, has Jones up only 1, which certainly means Miyares is leading probably by 3 or 4 points at least. So when you combine, Trafalgar shows him up 6, Signal shows him up 2, and the Democrat internal poll only has him up 1. Miyares is absolutely leading now if the polls can all be believed, and I think they can in this scenario. Also worth noting, the betting odds on Kalshi, a prominent political betting site, has the GOP odds now at 60%, which is a huge flip from where it was for most of the race. It was Democrats like up at 85 and 90%. Now they have the odds makers, I guess, and the bettors have the GOP at 60%. And I believe the lieutenant governor and governor races still favor the Democrats there. So as we wrap up predictions, and these will not be my final predictions probably, but for today to wrap up the video, governor, final result, I'm going to say it's something like Spanberger 51-5, Winsome 48-3, or something like that. It won't be a perfectly even 100, which is why I say that would be what? That'd be 99.8%. Did I do that right in my head? I think I did that, 99.8%. There'll always be a little bit of outliers. There'll probably be a little less than that. Let's say something like Spanberger 50.9. We'll just round and call it Spanberger 51, Winsome 47.5, something like that. I think it's going to be a close race, but right now I still see Spanberger getting a 2 to 3 point victory somewhere in there. Lieutenant governor, I think Reid will probably trail slightly behind Winsome if I had to guess. It'll be something like 3 to 4 point loss for him. It's possible he does a little better than Winsome. I think he probably does a little worse. So I think it's probably going to be, like I said, Winsome loses by about 3, Reid about 3.5 at this point. Attorney General, I am actually predicting a Republican hold. I think Miyares actually wins by, at this point, I would say 2 to 3 points. Give it 2 weeks with the GOP here draining all their resources in shoving out these anti-Jones and tying Spanberger to Jones ads for both those races. See some more polling, that could change, but the Attorney General race could grow, the margin could grow bigger, and my predictions on the other races could flip. We'll see what happens. And not only are these important for the races themselves, the better the Republican statewide candidates do, the better the Republican House of Delegates candidates do, and that's going to be our next video. The crucial, untalked about House of Delegates races here in Virginia. So important, arguably more important than the statewide races. The GOP is currently down 51 to 49 in the Virginia House of Delegates. They need to flip one seat to tie it, and that is super crucial. I'll explain why in the next video. And in that next video, I will include my final predictions for the House and the statewide races as well, Lord willing. So I do hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe if you did, because this is your headquarters for all things related to Virginia elections, now through Election Day, and just political analysis in general. It's the most conservative commentary online. Hope you enjoy it. As always, don't forget our verse of the year, Proverbs 25:26.